Hello, with this video I'm going to show you some tips on how to use Tinn-R for an efficient programming with R. So Tinn-R is an open source software. It's a text editor that can be interfaced with R. So if you don't have it, you can go online and download it. So Tinn-R can be interfaced with R either through an R term that is basically an embedded version of R within Tinn-R, or the basic version of R GUI. Normally I prefer the R GUI, so you can start it from here or clicking this button. So it interfaces the text editor with the basic version of R. In my case, I personalized the R GUI, so it's black and the colors are a little bit different, but that's the basic version of R. Okay, you can play around with the GUI preferences if you want to change this. Okay, so let's open a script. Let's try, for example, with this one. So the first thing that I generally do is when you start using Tinn-R is to set up a hotkeys. So hotkeys, you go in R there, and basically I only use two. One is send selection, and make sure that you type here the hotkey that you want. I normally use Ctrl/, for example, for sending the selection. Make sure that it is active and click add and OK. I also use another one that is called marked block, and I use Ctrl+M. Again, make sure that it is active and click add. Later I'll show you how to add some customized hotkeys as well. Okay. So what this does basically is if I open this script, for example, and I select some lines in this text editor, I want to run them in R, so I do Ctrl/, and I will run these lines that I selected. Okay. Then with these buttons you can play with the bookmarks. This is a nice feature in Tinn-R. So I remove them all with the green button here. And for example, I want to set a new bookmark here by pressing Ctrl-Shift and a number. For example, Ctrl-Shift-1. So with the cursor, if I go above that bookmark and I click Ctrl+M, remember that is my hotkey for marked blocks, it will run the lines only up to the bookmark number 1. If I go after that, it will run the lines afterwards, and so on. So you can set more than one, of course. You can have like up to 10, I guess, with the 0. So if I click in the middle of these two bookmarks and Ctrl+M again, it will run only the lines in between these two bookmarks. And then the bookmarks are very useful because with the Ctrl and the number, you can move up and down. So Ctrl+1 goes to the first bookmark, Ctrl+2 to the second, and this is very useful when you have long scripts. It makes life a lot easier. Okay, so if you want to customize some other hotkeys, you go again in R hotkeys, custom, and you have to bear in mind use this syntax. For example, I use the view function a lot. Okay, I want to see the data frame or the objects quite a lot. So I press view, I type view, parentheses, %s. So that's a syntax to use. And you set a key. So in my case, I use only a few, and there aren't many available, especially with a single press of a button. In this case, I use F4, for example. Make sure that it is active and save it. Then I use another one, and that's a nice feature again. Head shows the first lines of a data frame, for example. So the syntax is again parentheses, %s. And then because I want to see normally more than the 6 first rows, that's by default the head function, I type n equals to 20. I want to see 20 rows. And the nice thing here is also that after a semicolon, you can add another function into the same hotkey. So I add tail as well. And in this case, I just take the default by not specifying any other parameters. And I set it as my hotkey is F5. Same other functions that I use a lot is dimension, dim, that gives me the dimension of an object. Dim is not very useful if you have vectors, so I combined dim semicolon, and length. So length will give me a result for a vector as well. Okay, and I use F6 in this case. So let's see what it does, what this means. So for example, I run the first few lines here, Ctrl/. So I have an object, I imported an object called tot1, and I want to view it. So remember my hotkey was F4, and it just runs the command view tot1, and you can see the data frame very easily. F5 was my hotkey for the head and tail, and you can see with the n equals to 20, the first 20 rows are printed, and the tail as well. And also the F6 was my last hotkey with the dimension, and you have the number of rows and columns and the length, which in the case of data frame is equivalent to the number of columns. So that's, in my opinion, makes life a lot easier, and it makes using Tinn-R very efficient. I normally don't use very much these buttons, but some of them are sometimes very useful. You can play around. So this one, for example, print the content. So you don't want to type print the object. For example, this object again. Click here, you select it, click here, and it will print the entire object. Okay. If you want to print just the variable z, you select the variable as well, and that is just the variable tot1z. Okay. I often use this button for plot when I want to check some variables. It's not necessarily a nice plot because it uses the defaults, but it's actually very quick to just check the dataset very quickly to see if there is something wrong, or just to check the dataset. Another feature here, another button that sometimes I use, again on the object, you select the object and you can list the names, so the names associated with that object, in this case are the column names, so that's quite useful as well. Final thing, I don't normally use this very much. View to, in fact I can't remember, toolbars, there it is, no, tools. Okay, so that's by default you can use this toolbar in Tinn-R as well. So in R you have global environment, you have the objects. For example, if you update it, you see all the functions that I'm using at the moment and the dataset as well. So tot1 is my dataset in this case. And it's quite interesting. You can open a new script and drag this object in a script, and this is you can view the dataset in here. And the nice thing is that you can modify it, okay, if you want to. The only problem is that I found that it doesn't really work very well if you have very large datasets, but it can be useful. Okay, thank you for watching.